This is our Chapter 4 calculator video. So I'm going to teach you how to use your calculator throughout Chapter 4 with a key few examples here. You can use your calculator or you can do it by hand. It's up to you. Or if you're like me, when I learned this, I did it both. The reason why I did it both ways, I was afraid I was going to mess up on the calculator, and I trusted doing it by hand at first. But now, since I've practiced, I feel way more comfortable with my calculator and use it. Okay, so this is example 2 from 4.3. We already did it in a video. We have our answers here. It opens up because it's positive, find the vertex, all that. So I'm actually going to walk you through finding some of these key things without doing it by hand. Anytime you want to figure out something about an equation, you want to do the intercepts, vertex, or whatever, you hit y equals. And from there, we're going to type in our function. So we have x squared. If you want to square something real fast, you're going to hit this button right here. Below on the bottom of my screen, you can also see the buttons I am pressing. So you can kind of match it along. So we have x squared plus 10x. All right, now that we have that in there, let's go ahead and find the vertex. So to find the vertex, there are two ways to do it. When the numbers aren't big, see here how the numbers aren't that big, right? X squared plus 10x, those are not big numbers. So when they're not big numbers, we can go ahead and find the vertex with very much ease. So anytime we want to figure out something about an equation, we're usually going to hit second trace. And now I see these words, minimum and maximum. We know minimum and maximum as vertex when we have a quadratic. Since this opens up, we're going to have a minimum. So press the number 3. Just press the number 3. All right, it should look like this, more or less. If you don't see this, if you don't see a graph or it looks weird, make sure this does match. Everything from x minimum, x max, y minimum, y max, make sure from here up it's the same. So y scale up, it needs to be the same for you to see it. All right, on the bottom of your screen, it should say left bound. That means you want to use your arrows, use your left and right arrows until you see it again all the way on the left side. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. There we go. There it is. So the vertex, hypothetically, if the screen continued, wouldn't the vertex be somewhere over here? Try to look at my arrow. See? Wouldn't it be somewhere right there? So isn't this dot that's flashing left of that hypothetical vertex down here? It is. So when you get to the left, press enter, then it'll say right bound. So we're going to use our right arrow to go right of the vertex. So we scroll until we see it. Should be coming up soon. There it is. So this is right bound. Hypothetical vertex is down here. So this is right of the vertex. Go ahead and hit enter 2 times. So enter, enter. And we have our vertex, negative 4.999. That's negative 5. That is negative 5. Okay. You're not going to have any issues. It's just for this example. I don't know why. Every time I do this example, sometimes it'll give you negative 5. Some of you might have negative 5. Some of you might have negative 4.99999 forever 8. But it doesn't happen. I checked already with all the test questions, all the homework questions. It'll match, okay? All right, so there is our vertex. See, negative 5, negative 25. Awesome. So from the vertex, we can get our axis of symmetry, right? We can get our axis of symmetry from the vertex. So we can get those two things out of the way by doing that method. You're probably on this screen right now, so let's go ahead and find our x-intercepts if we have any. So if you want to get out of this screen or want to get out of somewhere and go back home, you press second mode, and that'll bring you back to the home screen. So let's find our intercepts by hitting second trace. And intercepts, remember another name for intercepts is 0. So we're going to hit number 2. And your dot, it should be somewhere. What you want it to do is scroll it to the left, 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 left intercept. So we're going to have to do this method twice because we have 2 x-intercepts. So scroll until you get somewhere about here to the left, 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 left intercept. So it says left bound. When it's left bound, I want to go just above the x-intercept. The reason why, because if you think if this is like a line that is just left of the intercept, press enter. Then right bound, you want to go below the intercept and hit enter twice. So enter, enter, and see how we have it at -10 right here? -10. So that's -10, 0. Now we have to do it again. So second trace, number 2. We're going to scroll to the other intercept. We're getting there. Should pop up any minute. There it is. Okay, so you see how it says left bound? That means I want to go left of this intercept. I am left of this intercept. Press enter. Then right bound, go right of the intercept. See this little dotted line? How it's left of the intercept. Now I'm going right of the intercept. And hit enter one more time. And we get 0, 0. That's how we get our intercepts, our x-intercepts. To find the y-intercepts, press second trace, number 1. And for the y-intercept, what do we make 0? We make x 0. So press 0, and you hit enter. And we get 0, 0. That's also our y-intercept. So to graph it, you would just copy the graph. Plot your intercepts, plot your vertex. And remember, the domain of every quadratic is all real numbers. In the range, if it goes up, then it's to positive infinity. So it's always the y value and infinity somewhere. So remember, the range is always the y value. Either it goes up or down. That's where the positive is going to go. For increasing, decreasing, remember how it's oriented if it goes up? It's always increasing from x of the vertex to infinity and decreasing from -infinity to x of the vertex. So those rules don't change, but you can find your vertex and your intercepts all with your calculator. You're like, well, I can do this one by hand. It's not too bad. X squared plus 10x, those are what we would say like normal numbers, right? There's no crazy fractions or anything like that. So that's what my next step is teaching you how can we apply what we just learned to something like example 6 from 4.3. So example 6 was that crazy water balloon fraction 1. Alrighty. So the first thing we need to do is hit y equals. And after we hit y equals, we need to plug this function in. So hit clear. Alright. If you have a newer calculator or if you're using this TI Smart View, then you can do this. Hit alpha, y equals, enter. If this doesn't pop up, just give me a second. I'll show you what to do. So we have negative. Negative is on the bottom. Negative is on the bottom. So -32 over 100 squared. My bad, I forgot the x. There we go. And it's squared. There we go. Plus x plus 100. Alright, now we have it plugged in. If you cannot get the fraction, I'll show you how to do it. So in your y1, if you cannot get the fraction, in your y1, if you cannot get the fraction, this is what it's going to look like. Parentheses, -32. My bad. Parentheses, parentheses again, -32 x squared. Close out the top, divided by parentheses 100 squared. Close out the bottom, close out the whole fraction, plus x plus 100. So if you have an older calculator, this is how you input fractions. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and find the maximum height of the projectile. So we knew that was just to find the y of the vertex. So let's do that. So press second trace. Since this is negative, we're going to have a maximum. So press number 4. See how it's loading? I can't even see it. I can't even see the graph because it's so big. It is such a massive graph. that doing the second trace minimum maximum is just going to be a little harder. So there's another way that we can think about this without doing it all by hand. So press second mode. Let's get back to the home screen. Now what I want us to do is plug this into the Vertex formula, but remember how plugging into the Vertex formula then having to plug it back in was a lot of work? We're going to do it with our calculator. So let's find the x of the vertex, which is negative b over 2a. So negative 1 over 2 times negative 32 over 100 squared. So doing that was a little bit of a pain. Took a bit. Let's plug all of that into our calculator to get the x of the vertex. So let's plug it in. We have a fraction, so alpha y equals enter. If you can't do that, give me a second. So we have negative 1 over 2 parentheses, another fraction, alpha y equals enter. Negative 32 over 100 squared. See how it looks exactly how it is on the paper? Press enter. If you get a decimal, I'll show you what to do. Give me a second. All right, so what if you don't have a fancy new calculator? Let's plug it in. So parentheses, negative 1, parentheses, divided by, parentheses, 2, parentheses, parentheses, negative 32 over, my bad, close out those tops. See how it closes out the numerator? Divided by parentheses 100 squared. Close out the denominator, close out the fraction, and close out the entire bottom. We get a decimal. If you don't, most of the time we want fractions. So if I say fractions, if you want decimal or decimal to fraction, go math, enter, enter, and it'll give you a fraction. So now, don't we need to plug that in to find y? Don't we need to plug it in, right? We need to plug it in to find the y value. We don't even actually need to do it by hand. So let me show you. Let's go ahead and find our y value by plugging in x. So we need to plug this in into the equation. That was kind of a nightmare when we did it by hand. So let's do it without by hand. So we have a fraction, alpha y equals enter, negative 32x. And remember that x is 625 over 4. Or you can use the decimal. Let's use the decimal. It's easier to plug in a decimal. So 156.25, and that's squared, over 100 squared, plus x, and remember x is 156.25, and then that's plus 100. And we get our decimal. If you don't want decimal, math, enter, enter. If you have an older calculator and can't get the fraction bar, let me help you out. So this is what it would look like. Parentheses, parentheses, negative 32 times 156.25 squared. And then that is divided by parentheses 100 squared plus 156.25 plus 100. So we get the same decimal answer. All right, so that was all for part A. So then part B was where we had to use the quadratic formula. Remember, in the notes we had to use the quadratic formula, and it was kind of a pain, right? It was a lot of work to do that with all the fractions. So let me help you out here and show you how to use the quadratic formula with your calculator. All right, so remember the quadratic formula? So that's our quadratic formula. You don't need to use the simplified version of the fraction. We can just use the fraction as is. So let's plug this into our quadratic formula of alpha y equals enter. So negative 18,750 plus the square root of 18,750 squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. And we get 45, just like we did. So now we have to do this again, but with the minus in the middle. So we hit highlight it, hit enter, scroll up to the plus, and make it a minus. And hit enter. And we get our two values.